Hey, what's going on guys? John the Video Guy here, and in today's video I'm going to go over mirrorless cameras. If you're new to the industry or you're an old-fashioned DSLR or film person, you want to see what is out there in the mirrorless, I'll go over what to look for, what are some of the pros, what are some of the drawbacks included with mirrorless cameras. So I'm going to go over my story first, but before we do, I have to say if you like these videos, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel to see more of them, and be sure to watch till the end because I'll be reviewing what the top camera I would buy if I was going to upgrade from my personal Lumix G85 to a new mirrorless camera that's out today. So be sure to watch to the very end to see my pick. So without further ado, let's get started. So I purchased my first mirrorless camera. It's actually the one that's being recording this video right now. It is the Lumix G85. And this is a micro four thirds camera, and you know, it's a pretty good camera. I can't complain. I bought it on Amazon. I bought it with a kit lens, and I bought a few more lenses, the 25mm lens prime and a telephoto lens to get more zoomed in on shots. This is the baby brother to like the GH4 or GH5. So when I look back, I switched because I was looking for better features that DSLR cameras weren't providing at the same price range. Mirrorless cameras are a little bit cheaper, and I saw that as an attraction point, as well as a lot of the specs that mirrorless had at the time were very attractive. For example, I wanted to upgrade and shoot at 60 frames a second and be able to at least shoot in 4K. With the rise of 4K, I wanted to be sure that I can deliver with clients and different people that wanted a 4K experience, and also it gives me a little bit more leeway in the video editing world. So that's why I purchased the camera. Let's go into some of the drawbacks that I ran into while using this camera and some of the things I learned online and otherwise afterwards after buying my first camera. So that way you guys know what you're getting into if you want to buy a mirrorless camera. So the first thing I noticed, and a lot of industry professionals talk about this when they get a mirrorless camera, the difference between DSLR and mirrorless is the depth of field. And this is mechanically actually because the way mirrorless is designed is that the lens is actually a lot physically closer to the sensor, wherein DSLR cameras are a lot larger and there's a lot more room between the lens and the sensor. So it's kind of tricky to try to get really nice out of focus backgrounds and bokehs in your shot. So if this is something that is a priority for you, mirrorless might not be the way to go, but I do want to caution that mirrorless technology is always advancing and it is getting better. So it is quite possible in the future that the depth is improved. Another early on issue with mirrorless cameras is the autofocus. A lot of the earlier mirrorless cameras had a lot of issues trying to autofocus, keep things in focus and have face tracker be in focus and switching from one thing to another. Since this is actually another mechanical issue or a hurdle, I would say it's not an issue because it is getting better over time. But in the mirrorless technology, the sensors all one. There's different sensors that track different things in DSLRs. Compared to mirrorless, it's all one sensor. So it's one sensor trying to do everything. So you can imagine, you know, mirrorless having issues trying to capture the light and determine whether to focus on what thing or what not. So you can imagine the sensor has issues, but it is getting better with time. The new mirrorless cameras, I have to say, they're pretty good with autofocus. Another drawback that is getting better, which is pretty much the theme of this video, is everything's getting better, but we're still at the early onset of mirrorless, is the lens selection. So when you notice if you switch to mirrorless, there's not a lot of lenses out there at the moment, where DSLR brands have a wide range of DSLR lenses that you can purchase for those bodies. On the same note of lenses, you'll notice if you try to use DSLR lenses on mirrorless cameras, you're not going to get the same effect. So lens compatibility is an issue. I personally have some Rokinon lenses that I tried to use on my mirrorless. It just doesn't look the same. They're a little fuzzy, and overall I was a little bit disappointed trying to use older lenses on these new mirrorless cameras. The adapters aren't there yet, and I'm not sure if this is going to get improved over time. To me, it didn't work out. So this is something to keep in mind if you're thinking of switching your DSLR lenses, still keeping them and getting an adapter for mirrorless cameras. I think it really depends on the brand and which brand you're switching from and going to. So for me, it didn't work out going from Canon lenses to Panasonic mirrorless lenses. All right, so that's enough of the disadvantages. Let's go over some of the pros. And the very first one that everyone is very attracted to is the price. They're a lot cheaper than the newer DSLR cameras. Like I mentioned in my story, that is one of the main reasons why I switched. Another big pro is that they're a lot less heavy than DSLR cameras. They're less bulky, and if you're a mobile video shooter or filmmaker that's traveling, doing a lot of vlogs or different location shoots, and you have to lug your equipment everywhere, mirrorless cameras are definitely going to help you and your back during your video production shoots. So these cameras are great. They're very lightweight. They can be easily transported through airports. You don't have to worry so much about the weight. The lenses are a lot smaller as well. So overall, mirrorless is smaller and more geared to the traveler. And the other thing I mentioned is they are more technically advanced. So you'll notice a lot of the newer mirrorless cameras that can shoot in 4K at 120 frames a second, which is crazy. To get at that level on the DSLR side, you have to spend a lot more money. So a lot of the technology in mirrorless, it has exceeded DSLR technology. Another thing that I've noticed, probably because I work in live events and it's important, but it is a very big pro if you are into this thing, is that it has a silent shutter. It doesn't make any noise, and this is critical if you work in the wedding industry or different corporate events where you can't make that much noise at these events. So having a silent shutter is really nice to have. Where DSLRs, you know, they have the shutter where you hear the click click because it has to bounce the light that comes in. Where mirrorless, you don't have that. And there's also an option to turn off the noise in the menu so that you don't hear beep beep, you know, when you're adjusting your settings. So it can be completely silent while on site. And another thing that I noticed that's interesting is that they are very much more damage resistant. Now, I don't want to recommend, you know, throwing these up against a wall, but they can take a beating, and they can really endure environments that are, you know, really aggressive, such as rain, salt, dirt, beaches, you name it. These things can really withstand the elements, and a lot of them, you'll notice, are graded for, you know, whether weatherproof or rain resistant, and you'll notice that these can take quite a beating. So, you know, compared to DSLRs, I would say these are a little bit more heavy duty, although they're smaller. They do pack a punch in the regards of being resilient against the natural forces of wind, rain, and snow and all that stuff. So these will hold up in the environment. So what's my takeaway? I have to say these are great cameras. I plan on using mine for a very long time, probably upgrade eventually, you know, when there's 8K or 10K. You know, it's always new, shinier things down the road, but I think mirrorless is here to stay. And nonetheless, the main event what you guys have been waiting for, my pick, is the Sony Alpha A7 Mark III. This is a really nice camera. If I had to upgrade, I'd probably go to that one. Overall, it has great specs, and it has a lot of features that are cool, such as the full frame sensor, which is really amazing compared to the one I have, which is micro four thirds sensor, which is a lot smaller. And one of the drawbacks with mirrorless, or the one specifically I have, it's bad at low light. So having a full frame sensor would really help in low light environments. And overall, you're going to get a really nice image. So this would be the camera I would get personally. So there you have it. I hope this video has helped you if you're in a purchasing decision for buying a mirrorless camera, or if you wanted to learn a little bit more about the mirrorless cameras, what their pros and cons are. Feel free to subscribe and like this video. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.